There's something about the music of Radiohead that seems to beg for it to be used in movies and television. Whether it's literally some of the names of their songs or the overall mood of the music, the band clearly has something special when it comes to their ability to write music that just seamlessly fits the screen. I mean, this list of TV and movie placements is insane. Not to mention the fact that two of the band's members, Tom York and Johnny Greenwood, each have experience as composers for film, television, documentaries, and even the concert hall in the case of Johnny Greenwood. Wait, no, not that one. Now, I don't think it's possible to completely formalize what it is about Radiohead's music that makes it so well suited for visual media, but we can certainly take note of what might be causing it to work so well in a given scene. We can also break down what's going on inside the music itself, and look at how songwriters can learn from that. As a heads up, I'm obviously going to be using examples from movies and television, so skip these parts of the video if you don't want spoilers for these movies and TV shows. What I want to do with this video is present a list of which factors make a song work well within a movie or a TV scene to begin with, and then show how Radiohead's music in particular exemplifies each of these factors in a unique way. Remember here that I'm talking about songs, not original music that's been written for a specific scene by a composer. So unfortunately, Radiohead's title song for the James Bond Spectre movie won't factor into what I'm talking about, since the band wrote that specifically for use in that movie. I will also never forgive the production for not using it. Absolutely criminal. What's also criminal is that I probably won't make any money from this video, because Radiohead's label is notorious for not only demonetizing videos, but also occasionally issuing DMCA takedown notices. So if you're interested in helping me with my legal fees, consider supporting the channel through my Buy Me a Coffee page. Donations from you guys enable me to dedicate more time to the channel, which lets me put videos out more often, so if you enjoy this video, click the first link in the description and support the channel through a one-time contribution. Thank you. Okay, first on the list, lyrics. This is probably one of the more obvious factors of why songs are used in television and movies. Lyrics are often matched up with or related to the on-screen drama in some way. To take an example of this that's really on the nose, we can look at the use of Radiohead's track Fake Plastic Trees in the show Brave New World. The show is of course based on the 1932 Aldous Huxley novel, where in a futuristic dystopian nightmare that definitely doesn't share any similarities to our world today, humans are engineered and conditioned to fill specific roles in society and don't experience intense emotions or hardships, suppressing these negative feelings with a drug called soma. Basically, everything in the world is very plastic and very fake, which ends up making it pair nicely with Radiohead's Fake Plastic Trees. This happens at the end of the pilot episode. And honestly, I think how they used it here is almost too obvious. And one example of this that I like a lot better is how the song A Wolf at the Door was used in the final episode of Dexter: New Blood. Now, even if you're a fan of Dexter, you're probably not a fan of the season finales for the original series or Dexter: New Blood. Well, maybe you are, but there's no way I'd ever know that because the internet is just overflowing with so many incredibly original comments about Dexter that yours probably just didn't make the cut. Seriously though, I do think this moment with Radiohead's song was one of the best moments to come out of what was an otherwise not so amazing episode. And I think that part of the reason this is because of the lyrics. The term keeping the wolf from the door is often used to mean that just enough is being done to keep everything from collapsing. And this is all Dexter was doing for his entire life up until this moment. He developed a persona and a methodical process using his father's code that was literally just enough to ensure that he wouldn't get caught. He kept the wolf from the door, at least mostly, until this scene, where his cop girlfriend has discovered who he really is and arrests him. Here, the underlying theme of the lyrics serves the drama really well in a way that's subtle and tasteful. It's not obvious to the point where he's like getting booked at the station and the lyrics are mentioning cops or something. Okay, let's unveil the next factor on our list. Build-up. Basically, as the intensity or drama of a scene builds or takes a turn, the music should follow. This is usually just done with an original composed score, because the timing is a bit difficult to pull off if you're using a song that wasn't specifically written for a scene. But since Radiohead songs so often build to big moments of climax or interesting turning points, tons of shows have taken advantage of this and utilized their music to amplify scenes like this. I think an obvious fan favorite example of this is the use of Radiohead's exit music for a film in the Black Mirror episode Shut Up and Dance. I'll try not to give away too much about the episode, but basically a teenage kid is blackmailed for engaging in some bad stuff. But the whole episode, you don't really know what the bad stuff is, and you're just rooting for this kid out of sympathy to get everything figured out, and then at the very end, the truth is revealed, which all culminates during the cathartic climax of exit music for a film. What's so great about this song is that it builds in a really delicate way to a moment of such high intensity and importance. One way this is done is through instrumentation. Radiohead holds back the introduction of each instrument until they're absolutely necessary. The first 2.5 minutes of this 4.5-minute song don't feature any drums or bass, both instruments which we often consider crucial in laying the foundation for a song. Instead, we get Tom York's somber vocals over a gently strummed acoustic guitar. From your sleep. With a sampled choir from the Mellotron M400 joining halfway through to add some more depth. And then finally during the climax of the song, the drums and heavily distorted bass are added in. Having the arrangement set up in this way gives the song a lot of room to grow, which allows the producers to line it up really well with the scene. In addition to this, the track utilizes a progression in the key of B minor, but also features a little bit of modal mixture, which basically means the band uses chords that belong to different modes and scales that aren't B minor. For example, in the key of B minor, one of the normal chords we would expect to hear is E minor, the minor 4 chord. But instead, Radiohead includes this E major over G sharp chord, which technically doesn't belong in B minor, but instead in B Dorian. This gives the chord progression a little bit of a different mood. Radiohead also uses what's called a Picardy third, where they resolve the progression to a B major even though the progression as a whole is in B minor. Another example of this kind of build-up comes from a show that loves to use Radiohead, Peaky Blinders. Wait a minute. Maybe Amelia Hartley just loves Radiohead. Well, she certainly knows how to make their music fit perfectly into scenes, as evidenced by the use of Radiohead's song Life in a Glass House in Season 3, Episode 6 of Peaky Blinders. At the very end of this episode, as it's revealed that Tommy Shelby has given his family up to the authorities, chaos ensues, and this unusual song fades in. Dissonant, pulsing piano chords are heard along with an unexpected ensemble to accompany the band. Trombone, clarinet, and trumpet, played by the English jazz trumpeter Humphrey Lyttelton and his band. The band was looking to add a New Orleans jazz funeral style to the song. Describing the climax of the song, Lyttelton says that it gradually gets so that we're sort of playing real wild, primitive New Orleans blues stuff. This is the part of the song that's used during the big moment in Peaky Blinders that makes it so effective. Then, as the song dies out, so does the scene, fading into a beautiful shot of Tommy standing in the doorway, watching his family be taken away, as the clarinet and trumpet noodle their way to a close. Next on the list, we have mood. This is more of a vibe thing, and what I mean by that is that the use of the song is not specifically accompanying any huge moment in the story, but instead it's just adding to the mood of the scene and making it all the more evocative. For this factor, I want to look at the pilot episode of a favorite show of mine in recent years, Ozark. I won't go too deep into the plot here, but I'll just explain that Jason Bateman plays Marty Bird, a financial advisor and father of two who launders money for a Mexican drug cartel. When his partner is caught skimming and gets killed, Marty is forced to move him and his family to the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri to launder even more money for the cartel. As he arrives there at the end of the pilot episode and walks into the Missouri woods, Radiohead's song Deck's Dark fades in. As Marty contemplates his decisions, the song creates a dreary, cinematic atmosphere that fits really well with the scene. It's not really hitting any sync points or cleverly connecting with the lyrics, but is instead just filling out the scene with an extra layer of emotion. Again, the band's harmonic choices here are really interesting. The song could loosely be considered in D major, and I say loosely because it borrows so many chords from D minor. So they're again using the same technique that we talked about with exit music. If they stuck strictly to the chords of D major, the song just wouldn't have the same impact. Later in the scene, Marty walks out to the edge of the cliff to overlook the lake. And as the shot pans, the music takes on a slight shift, adding acoustic drums and finally giving us the dominant 5 chord. Again, I've got to give credit to the music supervisor here because this is not the only time the show uses Radiohead, but we'll get back to that later. Speaking of great music supervisors, a scene I'd put mostly in the category of mood is another one from Peaky Blinders. Tommy is on vacation, trying to play golf and get his mind off of what his life has become. His attempt to do this is unsuccessful, and his frustration leads him into a fit of binge drinking and self-pity. All of this happens with Radiohead's Pyramid song as a bleak backdrop to what is honestly a really sad scene to come out of the final episode of season 4. Jumped in the river, what did I see? The lack of drums for the first half of the song, similar to exit music, gives the song and the scene room to breathe. As Tommy gets drunker and drunker though, the drums come in and add another layer of disarray to the mood of the scene. He trips and falls, cuts his hand on some glass, and at one point is within view of his son, Charlie. This is quite a heavy scene, and Pyramid Song does a great job capturing the overall vibe of it. Charlie! The song also complements the way the scene intensifies, which made me sort of want to put it in the build-up category, but since it's not highlighting a huge plot point, I felt it fit better in this category. And now's actually a good time to point out that many of the scenes we're looking at are going to contain a mix of all these factors. Some may utilize 2 or more factors, like the one we just looked at. The only reason I'm putting these scenes in categories to begin with is to show that they're good examples of a given category. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only category they could possibly fit in. With that said, our next factor is contrast. What I mean by this is a utilization of the different sections of a song to create a sense of contrast or progression within a scene. Take Radiohead's song, The Daily Mail. The beginning the moon is up on a mountain has quite a different energy to it than the middle. Which has quite a different energy to it than the end. This gives filmmakers the opportunity to create a scene that has clear sections, perhaps correlating with the on-screen action, making it somewhat similar to the build-up category, but I'll explain the difference in just a second. First, let's look at the use of the Daily Mail in Season 3, Episode 1 of Ozark. When Wendy Bird decides to go back to the old family house in Chicago and uses her key to break into the house which another family now lives in, we hear the introductory piano chords of the Daily Mail, solemnly following Wendy as she goes through the house, reminiscing about a simpler time with her family when she wasn't, laundering money for a drug cartel. Then, the song moves into its middle section, intruding on Wendy's nostalgia with a little bit of frustration. She starts making the beds and looking around, seemingly judging what this new family has made of the house. As the song enters its last section, Wendy is overcome with anger and resentment. She rips the sheets off the bed, grabs a beer from the fridge, she puts food coloring in the milk, she's turning pictures upside down, all as the music follows those emotions. The This whole scene is a masterclass by the production, and of course by Radiohead too, because the shifting emotions of Wendy are tracked so well onto the shifting sounds of the song. So that example might seem like build-up, but the technique of contrast can also be used in a more subtle way that doesn't necessarily entail any kind of build-up of intensity. During the season 1 finale of The Bear, Radiohead's song Let Down accompanies Carmi's discovery of wads of cash in tomato cans. As everyone is scrambling to open more and more cans, Carmi gets a moment outside to himself. Here, the music dies down to the part of Let Down where there's only guitar, in contrast to the full band we had just heard a couple seconds ago. It's a very subtle touch, but it makes us feel closer to Carmi as he makes the big decision to close the original beef and open the bear. The intensity actually decreases here instead of increasing, having the opposite effect of buildup. One final scene that does this subtly is yet another one from Peaky Blinders. Sorry guys, this show is just too good. They again pull from one of Radiohead's most cerebral albums, Amnesiac, to create two distinct scenes that divide the energy. This time we're looking at the song You and Whose Army in the first episode of Season 3. As the song's guitar and muffled vocals fade in, we get an intimate glimpse of the private life of Tommy. Getting out of bed to console a crying baby as he stares out the window blankly, presumably contemplating something. Then, when the drums and piano join in and really launch the song into its chorus, we return to the clatter of busy life for Tommy and his family at the betting shop. Once again, this is very subtle. And also once again, this song is full of really interesting harmony that has a ton of modal mixture just like the other ones we've been looking at. They basically start the song in C sharp minor, but hint at the relative A major, along with some other key centers. Before eventually moving to the parallel key of C sharp major during the chorus. Almost all of these examples have been great demonstrations of the band's mastery of lyrics, harmony, and form. But what about the actual sounds they use, the textural aspects of their music? Well, that leads me to the last factor on the list, and probably the one that's most of a stretch, but I still felt it was worth including, and that is the use of unusual or unique sounds. Radiohead is, of course, well known for their experimentation with many different sounds across genres. I mean, they've gone from this to this, to this, and everything in between, and still felt like Radiohead the whole way through. And I think that's part of the reason why really unique songs like Life in the Glass House, Wolf at the Door, Climbing Up the Walls, etc. are so effective in film. They use sounds and combinations of sounds that are really interesting. You're not really expecting to hear Tom York rapping, or Johnny Greenwood playing whatever this is, but it seems like those sounds are exactly what's called for in their respective scenes. A song that has weird enough sounds to grab the listener's attention, but still complements the drama. And the reason I put the scene from Children of Men as the cover for this one is because I feel like the reason the song was used was to match the odd energy of Jasper in his house. It served essentially no dramatic purpose and was background music, but it made sense due to its unusual sound.
What takes that?
And beyond what we've already talked about, I think this factor can leave us with a good takeaway for songwriters. Make yourself stand out. It seems to me like one of the commonalities among all this music that gets placed in shows and movies is originality. Now, this may sound like an obvious realization, but I actually don't think it is. Music for sync is an especially unique area precisely because originality is such a prized trait. That is not so much the case with current popular music, where some of the biggest songs can be just boring and will occasionally even border on the formulaic. It's a different ballgame with film and TV, because the music supervisor wants to be able to pitch music to the director and the producer that really gets in touch with their creative vision. Of course, continue to be your own artist, and don't force anything just hoping that you're going to get something placed. It's unlikely that Radiohead wrote their music with sync placements in mind. But they have definitely achieved a presence in visual media that we can learn from. They haven't hesitated to almost completely overhaul their sound on multiple occasions, and yet we still find something to love about all of their music. Thanks again for watching, and keep making music.